talking about the education of the mind, the education of the body, the education of your soul. And that cannot be accomplished if you do not know your past, if you do not know your history. And that really bothered me. That really, really bothered me when I finished my PhD. I said, yeah, I can write well. I have, you know, because when you enter a job, you try to see how do I get to the next one. It might not be your career. So yeah, I need 3 articles, 4 articles, I need grants to do research, I need this. But I knew the only way to be educated was to know where did my ancestors come from? What was there before slavery? What was there before colonization? What was there? And for the last 20+ years, that has been my research. I have researched. Now it's starting to be something coming up. I have researched about all the great kings and queens of Africa. And out of that, especially the women who were queens, they were very spiritual, extremely spiritual. They built temples, Queen Amina, Queen Nzinga, Queen Cleopatra, and I can go on and on. And because of their spirituality, I feel that if we combine with who we are, regardless of the religion you belong to, you become complete. Because you center everything on the divine. And we, as people of African ancestry, we are very divine people. We revere the Almighty God. That I couldn't get from my education, because they gave me information. The second one that I have found and that really grounds me is about culture. The pastor was talking about we need to honor our parents. That's at the root of the culture of the world. We need to be respectful. We need to respect. We need to trust. It's all in our culture. So I have done that research, and for the last 20 years I teach a course on cultural knowledges, representation, and colonial education. And when I talk about that, when I teach that course, I'm not just focusing on Africa. Africa is one of the continent. I have students across the globe. So I look at, so I get to know about the cultures of the world. And then I ask, where are the similarities? Where are the similarities? Where are the differences? Because the information we get in our schools marginalize each one of us. Marginalize us as gender, marginalize us because of our skin color, marginalize us because of our accents, marginalize us in every way. But once you ground again yourself into the cultures of the world, and you get to know that there is the basic line in terms of respect, honor, trust, the way we raise our children and so on and so forth, then we can extend hands. We can coexist together. So the type of education you need to master, coming back to your career, you need to master that education so that you're not just educated. You don't just have information. You are educated because when you are there at your job, the job that you have dreamt of, you'll be authentic. I'm very authentic when I'm teaching. I'm extremely authentic. And at the beginning, I was a little bit scared because I was challenging the status quo. But now I have facts. I'm very, very, she is one of my students. I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself later. Yeah. Again, I do not have a car, and for the last 2 weeks, she has been driving me around. Everywhere I go, she says, Professor, don't hesitate. Okay? The last R is resiliency. We are extremely resilient people. Extremely resilient people. We could not be here today if we don't have that resiliency. And I'll tell you, when I was cleaning those hotel rooms, I remember cleaning the bathroom. I said, Jockey, what is this? Interestingly, I'm a very interesting person. I said, you know something? I'm learning something. I learned how to make beds. Honestly, I know how to make beds. The orientation I got, working in that place, I know how to flatten it. I know when you go to the bathroom how to clean the video. So I took it as an opportunity to learn, and I applied that knowledge to today. When I was working, so you can see where resiliency comes in. When I was working at the pizza parlor, I call it a parlor, I've got to know how to do the dough. Those days, they did not have the machine for making the pizza dough. And the first time I got a home in Canada, I bought that little thing to start making pizzas in my house. So again, the reason why I give those examples is to talk to each one of you and your resiliency. Revisit your dreams. Make sure you have, don't let anybody squash your dream. Make sure that you have the right people through resources so that you can renew where you want to go. And if you find a hill or you're at the edge of the cliff, pause. Please pause. Don't feel, oh my God, this is a desperate situation. Step back and look up and say, God, you did not bring me all this way to experience this. And start renewing your expectations of you, renewing your education of where you want to be, and always, always, always be resilient. I think I've all the notes done. Yep. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Anything to share with anybody? No questions?
How did when you say that you did not let them know your qualification?
Yeah.
Whatever you were, even like doing your
I learned through experience. The first jobs I applied to, I would list all my degrees. And they always say, the job has been filled. And of course, the other thing they say, you don't have Canadian experience. That's another thing they say, you don't have Canadian experience. So I had several resumes. When I finished my PhD, because I didn't know I'll get a teaching job. When I finished my PhD, I had the resumes indicating all my degrees, all my publications. When I'm looking for a clerical job, because at least they expect maybe a first degree, I have my first degree, and when I am looking for something a little bit higher, then I put my master's degrees. But I really, because, you know, I had very young kids. My youngest baby, I came to this country with a child that was 2 months old. And I did not want to compromise that we did not go without food. So I was prepared, again, resiliency, I was prepared to do what it took to ensure that we had the food. And of course, my young granddaughter, because sometimes I'll come home so tired, and she'll say, Mom, you can't afford to sleep. We have to buy that car. We have to buy that home. You wake up. And right, that was my daughter. Because I had sort of talked to them the importance of this is not our country, but we cannot allow anyone to uproot us from here. And we need, I always told my 3 kids that we need to have like a belt where you put all your tools. And then you ask yourself, what do I need? You bring your particular tool and you use it. That will enable you to open that door. And I always used to tell them that if you go to a job, and especially, you know, we have problems with boys. If you go to a job, and especially I would tell my son, don't throw a temper tantrum because they're not giving you the respect you want. And I'll tell him when he comes home, no matter how long the night, dawn will come. You know, no matter how long the night is. Don't we have the sunrise? Even in the northern Canada, where they have 6 months of darkness, at one point the sun comes up. No matter, whatever situation you are in now, no matter how long the night, it will end. It will end. The other thing, the other proverb I constantly used with my kids was, you're building a house, and you have a hammer and a nail. You're trying to nail the hammer, to nail the nail. If it breaks, do you stop? No, you don't stop building. Yeah, exactly. You don't stop building. And I told them, and this is what I tell my students, don't let anybody tell you don't have enough tools. You don't have enough resources. You do. Because if you're a builder and the nail breaks, you don't stop building your house. You look for an alternative. Isn't it? Yeah. Natasha, would you like to say hello to?
Thank you so much, Professor. Wow. As usual, I mean, I'm always hooked with her presentations and wisdom and insights. So I'm honored and humbled to be your driver, not today and not in the last 2 weeks, but the rest of my life, and I can tell you why. Can I tell them why? Okay. So first of all, I'm Natasha Shokri. I'm born and raised in Iran, and I was living in Southeast Asia for 10 years before coming to Canada. So that's quick background. I would call myself the child of the world or citizen of the world. So the thing is that when I moved, there is a short story, but that's related to Prof. Presentation today and the workshop and all the CAR and yes, it is very well connected. I applied for you. I got my master from United Nations University for Peace. I was a peace builder since 2011, so that's quite the field I was in. And I applied for University of Toronto PhD program in social justice education. And I received this reply that you do not have enough background. You do not have background knowledge, so we recommend you to take our MEd program instead. At the same time, I had a PhD offer of admission from Manitoba University, and I have worked on a proposal with a team of professors at Erasmus University in Netherlands for a PhD program. So I had 2 PhD admission from 2 also well-known universities, but the University of Toronto told me that you have to do another master. And I love challenges in a way, I think, and I really love to study at the University of Toronto. And also I had this understanding that, okay, I would go there and I would prove them wrong. I have the background knowledge. So I get into the MEd program, and I almost finished all my courses getting A+ in the first year. And it was almost getting to the end of the program. It was on my birthday that through connections and very interesting connections, like Professor Wan, I knew Professor Wan through her scholarship and also that she is the chair of the school, but I didn't have any close contact with her. I haven't seen her, and I came to Canada in mid of pandemic. So every connection I had was through Zoom. So there was no human connection, outside classroom connection, within the university connection. So it was only virtual classrooms that was the door for me to the university world in a way. And when I talk about connection, that's always interesting, that we do not know about the path ahead of us and what God has planned for us. We never know that. Just we have to believe in ourselves in a way, and path gonna reopen itself. And as I said, there was no background connection between me and Professor Wan. And her secretary was a classmate of me, which I didn't know. And you know, these Zoom breakout rooms, see how chances might be. And that's an automatic random selection. And randomly, I was put in the same breakout room with her secretary. And I told her about the fact that how I didn't know that. I just shared the story and shared that I want to apply for a PhD because my master is getting to its end, and I'm about to finish my courses, and I want to apply for a PhD, and I wish Professor Wan to be my supervisor. And suddenly she said, you know what, I'm her secretary. I can make an appointment with her for you. I said, what? I said, yes, I can do that. And she made an appointment with Professor Wan on my birthday. It was 2 years ago. And the only wish I had was talk to Professor Wan and ask her to be my supervisor for the upcoming PhD program that I was about to apply. And I started sharing the story that what happened to me, that I had a master, and the university told me that you have to get a second master. And suddenly Professor Wan said, what? Who said that? I said, that was from the department. I said, no, that's wrong. And you know, that's how a human being would do. An authentic human being would do out of the structure. structure of institutions, because maybe you have to just, even if an institution make a mistake, people might cover it up, or they show that, no, the situation is so hard, you cannot get in, and they push you through a competition to compete more. But she said, no, that's a mistake. And you have no idea, but they changed my program to directly from MA to PhD. So it saved me lots of money, it saved me lots of time, and all my courses were transferred. I mean, it was immediately transferred, and that's how the journey began. And this is how even being a driver of you would have nothing to do that, because even I learned from her silence, even how to be a human, and I think that's a more kind of education out of the classroom. That's the beyond the information. That's a transformation I make through even your sitting by your side. Sorry, I took a lot of time. Just I wanted to share this story.
I think God led her to me. I think I became the coach that she was looking for. Because coming to do another AMED, similar story I had. Coming to do another AMED, and you know, with the international students, you pay close to $50,000 a year. So she had been told she has to pay $50,000 for the following year because they charge you for 2 years. And I said, no, no, no. And I just made a call. I said, why is this a student not in our PhD program? Anyway, that's the end. And this, I want to encourage you. Honestly, each one of you, I am in a position to be your coach, to guide you, because I know where there was a huge mountain for her. And I said, no, let's go through here. Because she was telling me she had to sell her jewelry, she had to sell everything to pay her school fees. I said, no, you don't have to do that. And I want to see more Kenyans at the University of Toronto. Why not? Why not? Come, try me. I am very good. And I'm not saying that because I want to to brag. No. I even if I'm not able to, I will show you the way. I will introduce you to people who can help you, who can coach you. We'll work together. We'll struggle together to look for money to pay tuition. We'll struggle because we are resilient. We are very resilient people. We can do it. And I have some of my students who are doing PhDs. They're in their 80s. Do you know, do people, you know, have people heard of this? She used to be Minister of Culture, Zenena Akande. She's my student. She's 85. Yeah. You know? Because and she's not going to get her PhD, her doctorate, for teaching. It's fulfillment. It's for fulfillment. So don't always think that, yes, I want this because I want this amount of dollars. No. I want this to expand my knowledge. I want this to do networking, because you never know whom you meet in that class. You never know. I've seen people get married connections, you know, when they meet in my, anyway. Does anybody else?
Okay, thank you, Professor. My name is Martin. I was to ask about the networking, but you have just talked about it. So, if you can be our coach, how can we contact you? Because if said you can introduce us, you can network us. Wait a bit.
Oh, I had a question myself.
Yes.
For single parents, say single mother,
Yeah.
finding it difficult to go back to school because you have to support your children, but you still want to pursue your career.
Yeah.
How do we go about it?
That's a very good question. You know what? My growing up, my parents, my brothers and sisters used to think I was a little bit crazy. I had a lot of imaginations. And when I came to Toronto with a young family, I was staying at the graduate residence. I scouted, and I realized there were so many people with young families. Going back to our roots, and you know, I said, back home we used to babysit each other's children. And I organized 5 families with young children. And I told them, we have classes, let's look at our timetables. And the day you're not having any class, you take the children to daycare, drop them, pick them, come and bathe them, provide food for them. I did that for almost 6 years. I wrote about it, mutual mothering, other mothering. I organized to have me as another mother. And that's how I went through education, as a single mother at that time. The other thing is, because we were expecting to go to conferences, I'll tell my colleagues, we are all going to the conference. You're coming with me. And they'll help me to babysit. And interestingly, when I'm presenting, I'll get my daughter to be at the table with me. I'll give her a paper. And this child. Today she's a professor. Yeah, she finished her PhD 2 years ago. And last week she got a full-time professor. Yeah. Again, of course, she used to say, Mom, I don't want to be a professor like you. I said, no problem. No problem at all. But you know, you teach through example. So don't be discouraged. Look around and see who has young children and organize the babysitting. And that's what I did, because, you know, as a student, as a single mother, I was getting $900. Of course, I was supplementing with the other kibarua, you know. So I had to read a plan, because after you pay rent, you're left with very little. And then, again, my imagination. I said, you know, at the graduate residence, you get 2 bedrooms. Huh? I looked around. I looked for a roommate, somebody who could also help me with babysitting. I looked for a young student to come and stay with me. And since then, she has become my friend. And out of that, I encouraged her to go back to school. And now she has a master's degree. Yeah, yeah. Any other question?
I didn't want to cross anyone out, though our time is so much gone. But I want to ask questions. Probably this is going to answer some of those questions that some of us has. And this is about, I'll ask as a community, as a Kenyan community, we have seen how some other communities from Africa, like Nigeria, for example, have really developed themselves in terms of education. And my question, and on behalf of those who are parents here, and they have children, and we have heard of stories where children are limited right from high school. What can we do as parents to help our children get into the right classes? And 2, what can we do as a community to develop ourselves beyond where we are right now? Because it's not a good place.
That's a very, very, very good question. And I'll start, I'll answer the question of the streaming, that is streaming within the educational system. This is something that I did not know, that in grade 9, your child get streamed so that that child will never go to university. Okay? And this is, when I found out that, I said, what kind of a system is this? You see, the system plans for you. The system plans for you. And unless you know how to navigate the system, you always end up having to know that going to a community college is a bad thing. I'm just saying you might have a child that wants to go to university. But at grade 9, they stream you. There is applied, there is academic. When you're applied, when you're put in applied, you know, even if you apply, fill out those forms, university forms in grade 12, you never get admitted. And this is why, again, giving you my example, in grade, because you know, I do a lot of research. I did a lot of research. So when this daughter of mine was in grade 9, she was put in applied. I went to that school. I said, why is she in applied? Do you know what the counselors and the principal told me? The fact that you're a professor doesn't mean that your daughter will be a professor. I said, huh? What? So that's where you're putting my child in applied? No. And I remember the principal saying, you know, you're quite aggressive. I say, I am not aggressive. And this is what I always say. I said, do you have time? That's what I told her. I told the principal and the car, do you have time? I can take you through the educational system of Canada for the last 100 years. And I know how our children have been streamed. I don't want to be a statistic. She said, you have done what? I said, do you have time? Do you have time? And out of that conversation, she was moved. And I have told the parents, please, this is now coming to our community. Let's work together. You have these women of word. Let's come together. Let's put the talents. What talents do you have? Where do you work? And the fact that we are here, women of word, it means that at the foundation, we have God in our lives. And when we have God in our lives, we need to ask God to enable us to trust each other. We don't trust each other as Kenyans. You don't. Huh? We don't trust each other. How do we build trust? I mean, for the longest, I'm a very, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm a very humble person. But if you hear the names I get described with, I feel sad. Not sad for myself. Sad because we can work together. We can work together as a community. We have lawyers within our community. We have doctors within our community. We have counselors within our community. We have everybody within. We come here. You know, Kenya is a very educated society. We have everything. We have all the skills. If we go to the basics and forget, this is why I keep saying, forget about tribalism. Forget about Joe, keep this, Akello this, keep this. Forget about tribalism, honestly, and go to the basics. We are all human beings. That's what I've been saying all my life. We are human beings. And as humans, we can do a lot. Right now, we have a crisis of our boys. We have a crisis of our young boys. I'm doing a research. If whoever was Jackie invited me. By the way, thank you so much for inviting me. And who is Mary Maura? Okay, thank you for inviting me. I have a research on where are our black male? Where are our black men? We need to do something as a community. We need to empower them. We need to encourage them. Because I always say the society, especially within the North American society, they are endangered species, our black boys. And we cannot help them if we cannot come together and start socializing them the way we used to do before colonization. Because with the Western mentality that we have, we Kenyans are very colonized. I will say that we need to decolonize our mind. The Europeans came and divided us. The Europeans came and took everything from us, even our own being. We need to decolonize our mind because that's the only way our children can find space in this country. Our boys. Jackie, invite me next year because then I can share about my research. Yeah. So, could you ensure that during Women of War Next, a community working group together, that we ensure that we follow up and find out how we can help our young girls, our young boys, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And when I'm in the classroom, I don't know why Kenyans don't like coming to my classes. And I'm very good as a teacher.
I think